Throughout human history, nations have fought over land, gold, religion, and most recently, oil. But as we move deeper into the 21st century, a new type of conflict is emerging that is far more dangerous. It is a war for the only resource that humans cannot live without for more than 3 days: water. In the Middle East and Africa, the sound of drums of war is no longer about ideology or borders. It is about the flow of the world's longest river, the Nile. For thousands of years, Egypt has been called the gift of the Nile, and 95% of its population lives along its banks. Without the Nile, Egypt simply does not exist. It is a desert with no life. But now, 2,000 miles to the south, a new giant is rising and trying to take control of the water: Ethiopia. They have built the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric project in African history. Ethiopia says they need the electricity to lift millions out of poverty and power their industrial revolution. Egypt says the dam is a death sentence that could starve their people and destroy their agriculture. In this video, we are going to analyze the hidden logic of the first modern water war. We will explain why the Egyptian military is preparing its fighter jets for a potential strike on the dam. And we will look at how water is becoming the new oil that will trigger the conflicts of the future. To understand why this is a crisis, we need to look at the math of survival and the history of the river. In 1929 and 1959, agreements were signed that gave Egypt and Sudan almost total control over the Nile's water. At that time, Ethiopia was not even consulted, and they have always viewed these treaties as colonial relics. Now, Ethiopia is asserting its right to its own resources, claiming that the water falling on their mountains belongs to them. But here is the physical reality. The Nile is a single, connected system. If Ethiopia fills its massive reservoir too quickly during a drought, the water level in Egypt's Aswan Dam will drop. If the water drops, Egypt's turbines stop spinning, and their farmers have nothing to irrigate their crops. For Egypt, this is not a diplomatic disagreement. It is an existential threat to their very survival. I want to ask you a question about international law and resources. Does a country have the right to build whatever it wants on a river that starts in its own territory? Or should downstream countries have a veto power if that project threatens their survival? This is the core of the global water crisis. Let me know your side in the comments below. But the Nile is not the only place where water is becoming a weapon of war and political leverage. In the Middle East, Turkey controls the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers through a massive network of dams. Downstream nations like Iraq and Syria are seeing their rivers dry up, leading to failed crops and mass migration. In Central Asia, the collapse of the Aral Sea and disputes over river flows are creating tension between former Soviet republics. Even between India and Pakistan, the Indus Water Treaty is under massive pressure as both nations face extreme water stress. The hidden logic is clear. As the global population grows and the climate gets hotter, water is becoming more valuable than gold. Military strategists are now looking at maps of rivers the same way they used to look at maps of oil pipelines. If you control the tap, you control the nations downstream. You can force them to obey, or you can watch them thirst. In Egypt, the tension has reached a boiling point where diplomacy seems to be failing. President Sisi has repeatedly stated that all options are on the table, which is diplomatic code for military action. Ethiopia has responded by installing advanced anti-aircraft systems around the dam to protect it from a potential airstrike. This is a classic zero-sum game where one side's gain is perceived as the other side's total loss. But there is a global player watching this conflict very closely: China. China is the one who provided the loans and the engineering expertise to help Ethiopia build this massive dam. By doing this, China has gained a massive strategic leverage over the Horn of Africa. They are not just building infrastructure. They are building a position of power in the most sensitive region of the continent. So, as we look at the 2030s and 2040s, we must realize that the era of oil geopolitics is ending. The era of hydropolitics has begun. We will see mass migrations, economic collapses, and wars triggered by the lack of a simple glass of water. But while the South is fighting for water to survive the heat, in the far north, the opposite is happening. The ice is melting, and a new ocean is opening up for the first time in human history. It is a place filled with trillions of dollars in oil, gas, and new trade routes that could bypass the entire world. And there is one country that has already deployed its nuclear icebreakers to claim it all: Russia. In our final video of this series, we are going to the coldest place on Earth. We will analyze the battle for the Arctic and the new Northern Sea route. See you in the Arctic video.